Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a brand new Shadow Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, Shadow BLAZIKEN. Now BLAZIKEN, already a very attack-weighted Pokemon, so now that it's Shadow, this thing does absolutely absurd levels of damage. That is of course balanced by the fact that it's very glassy, but if you can get this spicy Pokemon a shield advantage or an energy lead, it can put in so much work. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out Shadow BLAZIKEN in action in the Open Ultra League. Hopping to the first match, picking up a terrible lead, Pidgeot into Wall Rain, immediate save switch into Cobalion, and my opponent is going to respond with a Virizion. Virizion not necessarily what I was hoping to bait out here, as BLAZIKEN does do pretty well against it, but let's see what Cobalion can do. I'm going to be able to fire off the back-to-back Sacred Swords. Unfortunately, my opponent is already at the back-to-back Sacred Swords as well, and they can just throw both if they don't want to give up a shield. But it looks like my opponent is actually going to go for an aggressive farm down here, meaning that odds are they're probably running Stone Edge on the Virizion, and they want to absolutely slaughter my Pidgeot with the Stone Edge. I'm going to wait my clock a bit since I don't have Switch, and send in the Pidgeot. They're going to fire off the Sacred Sword. That's going to land, and they are going to be able to make it to the Stone Edge. Stone Edge, this is going to be close. Stone Edge barely doesn't KO. Aggressive switch into the Shadow BLAZIKEN, and it's a simultaneous switch. Shadow BLAZIKEN into Wall Rain. Look at the counter damage there. Shadow BLAZIKEN absolutely shredding. BLAZIKEN gets the farm down. What do they have in the back here? We know they have the incredibly low health Virizion in the back. Opponent is running Pidgeot, and they are not ready for a Shadow Brave Bird. Brave Bird from the BLAZIKEN gets the shield, but bad news for the opponent. They're all out of shields. Shadow Brave Bird one-shots the Pidgeot, and that is a good game. Picking up a positive lead in the next match, Pidgeot into Swampert. Considering I have a Steel type and a Fire type in the back, definitely happy to catch the Swampert on the lead. Swampert is of course going to be able to outpace. I'm going to let the first move through here. They go for the Hydro Cannon, and I'm going to full send the Brave Bird, hoping my opponent decides to call a bait. And they do. I'm going to send in Cobalion. Cobalion farming up. Opponent now going to send in Charizard. Since I have an energy lead, I am not baiting. Going straight for the Stone Edge, and my opponent respects it with a shield. My opponent does have a decent amount of energy on the Zard here, enough for the Blast Burn, so I am going to respect it with a shield. Due to my energy advantage, I will be able to outpace and force the second shield from the Charizard here. This is in time for the Zard. Zard is going to expend both shields. Zard, again, has enough. I decide to let it go, though. I want to try and save shields if at all possible. But the unfortunate thing is that they're going to be able to make it to another Blast Burn, which means I'm going to have to give up my final shield, and Shadow BLAZIKEN can output a tremendous amount of damage, but it is super glassy. So having a Shadow BLAZIKEN without shields is a very risky endeavor. Brave Bird is going to KO. We know the Swampert's on very low HP. What is that final Pokemon going to be? And it's a Wall Rain. In comes the BLAZIKEN. Swampert tries to get to a move and cannot. It's a race. BLAZIKEN makes it to the Brave Bird. This is going to be massive overkill, taking down the Wall Rain, and Shadow BLAZIKEN gets the win. We have a mirror lead in the next match. Best Buddy Pidgeot versus Best Buddy Pidgeot. So this will come down to a 50-50 coin flip on who wins CMP, and I do win the first CMP tie. I'm firing off the Feather Dance. That is going to land, and I'm not going to shield what my opponent throws either. I know I can tank whatever they throw. It's just a Feather Dance from them, and now I'm going to farm up and go for the Brave Bird. Going for the Brave Bird. This time, I do lose CMP. As I mentioned, we both have the same attack stat, so it is basically just going to come down to a coin flip. They go for a second Feather Dance, whereas I am full sending the Brave Bird. Brave Bird lands. I'm going to save switch into Cobalion. Cobalion goes for the Sacred Sword, but a beautiful catch by my opponent, catching the Sacred Sword onto Giratina and preserving their Pidgeot for later in the game. This Giratina is running Shadow Claw. Shadow Claw does give it a significantly better matchup versus Cobalion. They are running Shadow Sneak as well, so Cobalion not in the greatest spot ever here. I am going to be firing off the Stone Edge. Stone Edge will land and deal some pretty solid damage. Cobalion farming up. Opponent expecting me to throw on CMP, but I go for the extra, and getting a free double kick there is incredibly nice. I'm going to farm up, fire off the Stone Edge. Stone Edge is going to be getting the Giratina low here. Stone Edge gets Gira low. Cobalion farming up, and Cobalion makes it to another Stone Edge, applying a ton of pressure onto the Giratina and able to win switch. We'll have to see what does the opponent have in the back here. They have their own Cobalion. They have 2 shields, and they're not going to get a chance to use them, as Shadow Blaziken is about to absolutely shred through this Cobalion. This is how much damage Shadow Blaziken can do. Cobalion, which is an extremely tanky Pokemon in the Ultra League, cannot even make 3 Sacred Swords. As you're going to see, Blaziken just farms down and wins the game. The damage output from this thing is absurd. We pick up a bit of a tricky lead in the next match. Pidgeot into Shadow Dragonite. I decide no baiting here. I'm full sending the Brave Bird. Opponent respects it with a shield. And now I'm going to send in Cobalion. Cobalion, even if they do go straight for the superpower here, could tank it, but I do want to preserve some health, so I will commit a shield. I'm farming up with Cobalion. Opponent going to bank energy on the Dragonite and send in Tapu Fini. I definitely had to bait out the Fini, so I am very happy to see this here. And my Cobalion is still super healthy. They cannot throw any one move and KO me from this health range, so I should hopefully be in a pretty decent spot. I'm firing off the Stone Edge. That is going to get the Fini low. Fini has a lot of energy, and they're going to start to use it. Going for Surf number 1 here. That's going to land. Cobalion trying to make it to the Sacred Sword, and I just cannot. Fini is going to deploy Surf number 2, and down goes Cobalion. This does give my Pidgeot a nice farm, though, as Pidgeot now very, very close to a Feather Dance. In comes the Shadow Dragonite, and I'm going to be firing off the Feather Dance here. Odds are this will be grabbing the final shield, and it does. And now I'm just going to stay in here and wait for them to throw. The Dragonite has so much energy, though. I'm going to let this through. Dragon Claw KOs. In comes the Shadow Blaziken in the back. They have Cobalion. And unfortunately, I should have thrown my move as soon as I got it. My opponent overfarmed, and that gave me a potential win con, but I did not. And as you're going to see, I'm able to overfarm as much as I can here. I go till it's a CMP tie, but Dragonite saved a Dragon Claw, and since I don't have my shield, that just gets me too low, and Blaziken is barely KO'd. Hopping into the next match, leading Pidgeot into another Swampert lead. Same game plan as before. I'm going to stay in this matchup to start. I can pretty comfortably tank a Hydro Cannon and then fire off the Brave Bird to either gain a massive health advantage or grab an early shield advantage. Hydro Cannon is going to land. I'm going for the Brave Bird right away. Is Swampert willing to expend his shield? Yes, they are. And now in comes Cobalion. Swampert staying in. So you know what? I'm just going straight for the Sacred Sword here. Let's put some pressure onto this Swampert. And they give up the second shield. At this point, I'm feeling very confident because when the opponent has no shields remaining, Shadow Blaziken is an absolute nightmare to deal with. Again, I'm just not going to be shielding the Cobalion here. They go for the Hydro Cannon. That's not going to KO. I go for the Sacred Sword, but my opponent makes a beautiful catch, catching the Sacred Sword onto Charizard. Now, this is a bit scary as Charizard is going to get a very, very nice farm down. I'm going to send in the Pidgeot here. I have to make it to the Brave Bird. Oh my goodness. Claw wouldn't KO, Blast Burn would. I commit the shield. It's a Dragon Claw bait. Going for the Brave Bird, and I lose CMP. I think they're one short here, though. I'm going to let this go, and it's just the Dragon Claw. Oh my goodness, that was close. I'm going to be firing off the Brave Bird. Brave Bird, shields down, is of course going to KO. They still have the Swampert in the back, and they have a Wall Rain. And with no shields remaining, Shadow Blaziken is about to dominate. Blaziken, Blaze Kick, down goes Wall Rain, bring back in that Swampert. I'm just going for the Blaze Kick here. It's resisted, but Shadow Blaziken able to get them low. One more counter should do it, and that's game over. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Pidgeot into Jellicent. Considering my backline does very poorly versus Jellicent, I'm definitely happy to catch the Jelly on the lead. They're staying in. I'm going to go for the Feather Dance. Let's debuff them right off the bat. Opponent is going to bank the energy for later and send in Galarian Weezing. Again, this is a bit of a core breaker for this team, so I'm just going to go straight for the Feather Dance, not even baiting the Brave Bird, because I need that attack drop badly. Now, I should be able to tank whatever they throw here. They go for the Play Rough. That's not going to do a lot. I'm going to bank a Brave Bird for later, send in Cobalion, and they're already at -2 attack. So even if they overheat here, I should be able to tank it. And they are going to full send the overheat, but Cobalion able to tank it, and now I'm going straight for the Stone Edge. They should have taken enough damage where this is lethal, and it just barely is. In comes the Jellicent. Very nice energy management there by my opponent. They're over farming as much as they can, firing off the Shadow Ball, and I'm going to get KO'd. My Pidgeot is a bit low on health here, which is definitely scary. I'm going to send in the Pidgeot and again go for a Feather Dance. I'm hoping my opponent will respect the Brave Bird here, but they do not. They're going to send in their final Pokemon, which is Charizard. Again, I'm just going for the Feather Dance here. I'm in absolute shambles. Feather Dance gets shielded. My opponent lost count. That is very good for me. Blast Burn will KO. A Dragon Claw will not, though. So I'm going to let this through. Dragon Claw not able to KO, and I make it to the Brave Bird. Okay, maybe there is a chance here. Brave Bird is going to get the final shield, and now I send in the Shadow Blaziken. They're debuffed, so I should be able to tank whatever they throw here. I have to save shields for the Jellicent. Blast Burn still does a ton of damage, even when debuffed. They have another move. I am going to respect it with a shield. It's the Blast Burn. Our switch timers are misaligned, and they're going to send in the Jellicent. At this point, I've lost track of Jellicent's energy. I'm going to overfarm by 3 counters. Go for the Brave Bird. Brave Bird will be lethal. The question is, can I make it to the Blaze Kick here? I cannot, as we lose a very close game. Picking up a positive lead in the next match, Pidgeot into Shadow Gliscor. Gliscor, of course, has to go for the non-stab Night Slashes in this matchup, so you definitely prefer to be the Pidgeot. I bait with a Feather Dance, it gets no-shielded, and at this point, I'm having very unfortunate luck where my Feather Dances are being no-shielded and my Brave Birds are being shielded. They go for the Surf on the Jellicent. I'm going to full send the Brave Bird. I'm hoping my opponent decides to call a Feather Dance bait, and they do. That's massive. Now I can send in Cobalion. Cobalion can tank whatever the Jellicent throws here. Jellicent probably going to be opting for the Shadow Ball here, and they do. That does quite a bit of damage. Cobalion going to overfarm a little bit, and then go for the Stone Edge. Stone Edge should be lethal here, and this way I do leave with a bit of residual energy. Is my opponent going to send in the Gliscor, or do we see the third here? In comes that Shadow Gliscor, farming up and going for the Stone Edge. I believe my opponent got the 1-turn bring in there, as they should have been able to outpace 8 turns versus 9, but unfortunately it does end up being a CMP tie. They're going to fire off the Earthquake. That's going to KO. I send in Pidgeot. In the back, they have Samurott. Now, switching a Fire type into a Water type oftentimes can seem like a pretty bad idea, but here's where Shadow Blaziken and the counter damage is absolutely absurd. As you can see, these counters are shredding through the Samurott. Samurott, due to Fury Cutter being incredibly fast, can barely make it to a third Hydro Cannon, but because I'm running an attack-weighted Blaziken against the Swampert, I can actually 2-shield counter down, which is pretty crazy. I'm going to be firing off Blaze Kick number 2. I just want to grab the shields at this point, because I know Pidgeot is not far off of a move. So Hydro Cannon is going to KO, but I can send in the Pidgeot. Opponent sends in the Gliscor. Pidgeot gets to the Feather Dance. That's going to be taking care of the Gliscor, and the Samurott is just too low of HP, and that is a good game. Hopping to the final match, leading Pidgeot into another Wall Rain. As before, immediate save switch into Cobalion, and my opponent is going to respond with a Shadow Claw Giratina Altered. Honestly, not the greatest matchup for Cobalion, but I'm pretty happy to see this because my Shadow Blaziken definitely did not want to see the Giratina, so I definitely don't mind baiting this out. Giratina is going to be firing off the Shadow Sneak. That's going to land and deal some chip damage onto Cobalion. Cobalion farming up and going for another Stone Edge. Now this will be getting the Giratina below half health as the Stone Edge is able to land. The question is, can I make it to Stone Edge number 3 and potentially make a play for switch? Shadow Sneak is going to land. Cobalion farming up, but just not able to get to the Stone Edge as my opponent is going to deploy the Shadow Sneak and I get KO'd. But the good news is that this is going to give my Pidgeot an absolutely massive energy lead, and even though it's a Pidgeot into a Wall Rain definitely does not appreciate Brave Bird. I'm going to look for the farm down. They will make it to one final Dragon Claw, but at this point I don't really care. I just want the energy that I have, and I'm very close to double Brave Bird here. You can't quite hold double Brave Bird, but I'm sitting at 100 energy. I'm firing off the Brave Bird into the Wall Rain. Brave Bird is going to land. In comes Shadow Blaziken. In the back, they have Virizion. Virizion is able to outpace Shadow Blaziken, but the nice thing is that I do actually survive a Sacred Sword. They're going to be firing off a move. Even though I do survive one, doesn't necessarily mean that I want to tank it, so I am going to be committing the shield. Blaziken able to apply a lot of pressure here, even though counters are only hitting for neutral. And the nice thing is, I'm very close to a second Brave Bird on Pidgeot, so at this point, this game should basically be over. Blaze Kick is going to get no-shielded by my opponent, putting their faith in Wall Rain to finish it, but Wall Rain is going to get countered down, and that is a good game. I'll be honest, I think Shadow Blaziken is probably one of the most fun Pokemon Niantic has released in a very long time. I will warn, as I mentioned at the beginning, this thing is so glassy, so you have to make sure you have shields, and honestly, even if you go up against a Mon with some fast move pressure, it's probably going to get melted as well, but if you can get it with an energy lead or a shield advantage, this thing can absolutely shred through opposing teams. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.